welcome to my 2021 Middle Grade TBR. Okay, so as I'm talking, we are in the middle of Believe-a-thon, which is a middle grade readathon. So what I thought I'd do, instead of giving shout outs to my general usual middle grade, which is just generally Scott Dockery Pleasant and Artemis Fowl and Aru Shah, what I thought I'd do instead is shout out a few of the books that I do want to read next year that are middle grade. So I'm going to start with the chunkiest one, and that is the Twig Trilogy, which is a huge brick of a book. I've owned this, I think, since it came out, which was at some point 2007. We've probably owned this since then. I can't remember this ever not being in the house, quite frankly, and it is massive, and I haven't read it. One, because it's massive, and two, because up until last year I didn't realise there was any books before this one to read. So what I actually have to read first is the Quint Saga, which is the first bit in the Edge Chronicles. That's right, it's the Quint Saga I've got to read first of the Edge Chronicles, and then I can go on to part 2 of the Edge Chronicles, which is the Twig Trilogy. So that's why I haven't read it yet. That's why I keep on telling myself I haven't read it yet anyway, but I do want to read it in 2021. It has been sitting in my house for 13 years unread, so it's time I got to it. I've then also got The Jumbies on this list by Tracy Baptiste. Now this one is inspired by Caribbean mythology, and while I would, or at least Caribbean folk traditions, that's right, not mythology, Caribbean folk traditions. And this one I have had for a couple of months now, and I was going to read it in October. I ran out of time. Usually I would continue on reading obviously spooky middle grades and just general middle grades for Believe-a-thon, but I don't think I'm going to get to this one, even though it's really short, because quite frankly my TBR is rather long as it is, and I'm just not going to get to it. So what I want to do is read this next year for spooky season, because it's supposed to be quite spooky and quite scary for middle grade, so I definitely want to read it in the spooky season next year. I've also got the Mask of Arabella that I want to read next year, because superheroes. It's literally about masked heroes, aka superheroes, and I'm just here for that. It's a magical organisation of masked heroes with their own special skills. What part of that isn't screaming me? So next year, in the year of superheroes, when hopefully all the cinemas open again safely and all the superhero films come out and all the superhero TV shows come out, I can read this as well and keep the sort of superhero thing going also into my reading. I've then got Locke and Co, The Screaming Staircase by Jonathan Stroud. Now this one has been described as basically like Scott Dockery Pleasant, but they're focusing mainly on ghosts. Apparently this is being turned into a TV series on Netflix next year, or at least hopefully next year. I know it's being turned into a Netflix series, so that's why I picked it up. Also because it was highly recommended for people who love Scott Dockery Pleasant. Obviously I am a massive nerd for Scott Dockery Pleasant, so this sounded really interesting. Now, especially with the Netflix series, I do want to read this when the series comes out, because I quite like reading books and watching the adaptations at the same time. So as soon as that comes out, this is getting read. I've also got Moonchild, The Voyage of the Lost and Found by Aisha Bushby. Now this one is based on the Arabian Nights tales, which just sounded really good fun, because I am trying to read more from various authors with various different like mythologies and stuff like this. I am trying to sort of widen my reading that way, so this I felt like was a good place to start. Also, I mean, the cover, it's just calling to me in every level. It's just calling to me, so I definitely want to get to this one next year. And then the final 4 books I've got to mention are really old books, as in they're not old as in they're really old as in they've been published years ago. Well, they have been. They've all been published at least a decade ago. But what I mean is that they've been in my house and they've gone through several moves with me, and I haven't read them all the way through or at all, which is really bad. So I'm attempting to use this video to shame myself into reading these next year. But the first one I've got to mention is Tangle Wreck by Jeanette Winterson. Now I've got no idea what this book is about. None whatsoever. All I know is that it looks a bit steampunky. That's all I know. And the reason why I know nothing about this one is because this book feels cursed, quite frankly, because I don't remember receiving this book. I think my mum bought it, then she never read it, and I never read it. We moved multiple times. I decided to finally unhaul it. I unhauled it to my best friend. She never read it, then she unhauled it back to me, and I still haven't read it. I think next year better be the year I actually read it, because at the moment, otherwise, this is just never going to get read. I mean, This year, this book is 14 years old and the spine is still perfect. The pages are a little bit yellow, but other than that, it's in perfect condition. And I'm just thinking, that's a good thing. But at the same time, I should probably read this. Because, I mean, if it's stuck around this long and it's been unhauled and then hauled back to me, I think there's a reason why it's still here, so I should probably get to it. The next one I've got is The Darkest Rising sequence by Suzanne Cooper. Now, this one has clearly been read and moved house several times. It's moved house with me about 4 or 5 times now, I can't remember. I remember watching the film, really enjoying the film, and then buying the book. Can't tell you what it's about now though, it's been that long, because this came out, again, this came out in, it was originally published in 1968. Okay then, this one is old. This one is very, I didn't realise how old this was. Okay, this is probably the oldest book on my TBR, but essentially this is a bind-up of the entire sequence, and I've seen some people talking about it. I remember Cara read it, who I will link a link to down below. I remember she read it and really enjoyed it, if I remember rightly, and it's just inspired me to read this, and I sort of uncovered it while I was redoing all of my bookshelves, so I should probably read this one at some point soon, and I'm thinking 2021 may be the year. I've then got Aragon on this list because I have owned this book so long. I actually bought it when it had the thing wrapped around it saying win your own private premiere to the movie. That's how old this book is, and I still haven't read it. The pages make it look like I've read it, but I genuinely haven't. It just moved house with me like 6 times now, so I think it's time I actually read this, because I know so many people really love it. I've also heard some people really hate it, so mixed bag on that front, but I do want to give it a go. I definitely want to give it a go, and I think next year will be the year. And the final one I have to mention is the original Nurse Matilda. Now, I know this is the movie cover. It's even actually got bits in it that are photos from the Nanny McPhee movie, but I do actually remember reading some of this as a kid. I must have read 2 out of the 3 books in this bind-up, because this is actually a bind-up, and I remember enjoying them. The only thing I truly remember about them though is every time, like when I was reading them, I actually wrote down a list of all the names of all the kids so I could actually count how many kids there actually were, because it's more than 7. It was about 36 in book 2 if I remember rightly. It was in the high 30s is all I remember, because I was that nerdy kid who actually counted how many kids there were. But I just remember that, and that's all I remember apart from the enjoyment of this. So what I want to do is actually read these again and finally get all the way through, because this book is the most battered thing you've ever seen, and I think I should have read it for the amount of battering it's had. I think it deserves being fully read at this point. And that is all of the middle grade books I want to read in 2021. That I already own. I'm sure there's going to be more that I'm going to want to read, because obviously new year, new books being released, but at the moment these are the books that have been on my shelves for a lot of them for a very long time, so I should probably read them and get them off the TBR, because they quite frankly deserve it. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below if you've read any of these books and tell me what you think about them. I'd love to know. I'll also leave a link down below to all of my social media if you want to check it out, including a comic book sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics. So if you are interested in Marvel Comics, please check that out down below. If you want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the links to my previous video. But until next time everyone, bye!